Later. Hey, if you turn in your homework later, please put your name on it, and please put the period number on.
Work on is fine.
I was just hoping it was because you sort of.
Go! I thought I hated you. Where's my writing ever look like that? I think you're messing with me. I lost my peach, and I'm so sad. I wanted it in a long time, and it was in my basketball bag. But I wore it in your car? No, I'm not in my car. Unless my mom was watching it. Yeah, or did Jessica put it?
I'm trying to figure out the one that I like the most.
I think this one's probably the cooler one.
I like yesterday better.
Yeah, that means I can just set my shot, eh? Hey, shot. Hey. Okay. What'd you get? Is this the business or computer app?
Computer app.
Anywhere you like. Okay, remember, we're going to continue on with our notes we did yesterday.
Let us know.
There's a rabbit, and he's probably cold. Oh, there's a squirrel. Yeah, I just saw that.
Alan.
Yeah.
Yes,
Pretty cool. I wore the shirt for a reason.
I can't believe it's snowing today. And
I
once,
went outside and I'm like, no.
it's like when the snow hits the ground, it melts right away, but there's like soft ones.
Here, get on this Snapchat. Okay, you can stand.
Here's someone on Snapchat, because you're on. I only have Facebook and Twitter, and that's it. I don't have Instagram, I don't have Snapchat. I don't have all this other stuff. Hey, calm down, Kevin.
Captain?
Help. Kevin.
Kevin, bro.
Open up.
He's a new character in the new one.
Okay, Groot.
I just need his nose. Kind of getting it though.
Which is way more
Man, you know.
I'm actually kind of excited that it's snowing.
Don't you
Is
love?
snowing coming?
Now,
Okay,
every
do you guys
How
play?
about winter?
Winter Quebec.
Good. All right. So let's talk about our problems today. We have a couple more story problems that I would like to do today, kind of like what we did yesterday, to get kind of a feel for this. Now, we are going to get an assignment on this tomorrow. So just kind of give you a kind of rare chance at kind of preparing ahead of time. Okay. All right. So. Okay, so we're on word problems. So section 3.7 up to 3.15, technically there's like 15 sections. We only did about 12 because the story problems were the remaining few. Okay, now I mix these all together. It's not just, multiplying all the time, or just division all the time, or adding or subtracting all the time. They kind of mix together. So you could do certain problems in different ways depending on what the wording is. So that's the big deal. Like yesterday we talked about, cutting a cake recipe in half and dividing it by 2. Or multiplying by half. We talked about yesterday, like adding pipes together. So we added certain things together. We talked about breaking a board into pieces, so we're subtracting or dividing it. There was a couple different ways we did that. Now today, we're going to continue on that same idea today, but we have new story prompts. Now some of these will have the same kind of pictures that we used yesterday, but they have new words to them. All right, so here we go. So we're going to use that pipe example again. So, how many pieces of pipe can be cut from a 12-foot pipe? So we have a 12-foot pipe, and we're going to cut each piece into 2/3 of a foot. 2/3 of a foot. Now, obviously, think about this logically before we start. You have 12 feet of pipe. What happens if I cut it into 1-foot pieces? How many will you have?
Like
12 of them. Common sense, right? If you cut them into each 1 foot, there's 12 feet of them. Okay? 12 pieces. We're going less than a foot. I'm going to take my huge pipe here, that's almost the length of my marker board, and instead of cutting these into perfect 1-foot pieces, we're going to cut them a little bit shorter. So will there be more or less of them? There'll be more of them. They're smaller, so there'll be more pipe. Okay? So that's what you need to realize. I would like you to figure out your answer for this. There's 2 ways you can do this. You could subtract 2/3 a bunch of times, or another way. And I'm not going to tell you that. Okay, alright, there you go. Let's see if you can figure it out. How many pieces of pipe can you make if each one's cut into 2/3 of a foot? You subtract, or the other. Which one? What is 9? Okay. And technically, there's a way to do that. It'd be really hard, but you could do it. Yeah, I'll give you until right at 11 o'clock. So you got about 3 or 4 minutes. And then we're going to see how you attempted this. Now the goal again, remember the goal today is to do about 4 to 5 different problems. Kind of see where we're at. I'll probably take you around right at the end of the class today. Again, just try a healthy shot at it, and then we're going to go through some of these answers. Yeah, how many pieces of pipe can be cut from a 12-foot piece of pipe if they're each cut into 2/3 of a foot? And if you need to borrow a calculator, you can borrow. You got about a minute left here. And then you did ask, can we add? Technically you could, it'd be really hard. Let me explain, okay? If you want to figure out how many pieces of pipe, that are 2/3 of a foot long, that will get you all 12 feet of that pipe, all 12 of this beam that I have in front of you here, right? You could add 2/3 a bunch of times until you get up to 12, if it works out perfectly. You could do that. And so I'll add the first couple, right? So if I add 2/3 plus 2/3, that's 4/3, right? That's how you add. And what 4/3 is, or maybe I keep adding, right? Maybe I add the next one. So that would be, so far I'm at, that's at 6/3. That, right now, what I'm at, that's 6 divided by 3, that's exactly 2. That's 2 feet. 2 feet of pipe. And look how many pipes I've already added. How many is that to get there? 3 of them. I've added 3 pieces. That's 3 pieces. And I've already got 2 feet of pipe. So you can keep going that route and keep adding. It would be really tough. You're going to have to go for a while, right? I think that's a little bit difficult. It's a little too much work. The other way you could do this, like I hinted, okay? You could subtract. You could take 12 and subtract 2/3 and figure out what that answer is. Now 12, by the way, is 12 over 1. You'd have to get 12 over 1, I should say. And you'd have to get common denominators, which would be 3. And if I multiply the top by 3, I get 36. And you subtract 2/3 down. So if I subtract, and I would just keep subtracting 2/3 down and see how many times can I actually subtract. So this would be, I subtracted it once successfully, I'd try it again, so it would be 32 over 3, and so I'm going to try it again. And I would keep going that route. I could subtract 2/3 off, and I get down until where I get 0, and I count how many times did I subtract. So that's how many pipes I have. That's a lot. That'd take a while. Anyone think about this problem differently? Anyone do a different strategy?
I just did 12 over 1 minus 2 over 3, but I simplified the 12 into 3. Made the 12 to a 6 and made the 3 to a 1.
Oh, yeah. You can't technically simplify it unless it's multiplying or dividing. Oh.
I got 4 over 1.
No. Just subtract. If you want to know how many pieces of pipe you can use out of all 12, just divide. If you divide, those are how many pieces you can have. You're taking, 12 feet and dividing into 2/3. That'll tell you how many 2/3 you have. That's what division is used for. You're dividing into equal pieces. So if you divide, I'm going to change this to multiplication, and the second fraction has to flip. That's when you divide, it makes smaller pieces. That's what we're doing. How many pieces you're getting. So when I do this, now you can simplify, because multiplying and dividing you can simplify. So the 12 and 2 can simplify to be 1 and 6, and now I can go straight across. Because I divide both these numbers by 2. What's 6 times 3? 18. And what's 1 times 1? And what's 18 over 1? 18. Hey, that's how many pieces of pipe you have. You have 18 pieces. There's a lot. We already said that, right? Think about that logically. What we said earlier, if you're going to take all 12 feet of my marker board and cut into 1-foot sections, there's going to be 12-foot sections. 12 of them. And we said, okay, we're not going to cut into 1-foot pieces anymore. We're cutting them a little bit smaller. And you guys said there would be more of them. So, that makes sense. That's more than 12. Questions, comments on why we divided? Now, you could have added, you could have subtracted, but that means you'd have to do that logic game, counting how many times did I subtract. You would have to subtract it 18 times, by the way. So you get another 0. There's no pipe left. All right, questions, comments on what we're doing here? All right, let's go to the next one. Now you guys are getting the feel for it again. I know these are tough. You got to start to figure out why we divide. Dividing is when we're making smaller pieces. Subtracting is when we're trying to find what's left. Adding is when we're trying to find the total. Multiplying is when we're trying to create a large amount of it. Like 5 boards, and we know what each one is. Okay, Kylie is working after school. She works 3 1/4 hours on Monday, 2 3/4 hours Wednesday, an hour and a fourth on Friday. How many hours does she work? So think about that. What are we trying to find? How many hours? So what operation will help me find a total? Adding. You have to add. Adding helps you find totals. So subtracting helps you find what's left. Dividing helps you find numbers of pieces. And multiplying helps you, find a large amount of items when you have multiple times. So you're probably adding these. Okay. So you got to add 3. 3 numbers there. See if you can figure it out. I'll give you 4 minutes. See if you can figure it out. Now, what do you got to make sure when you add? What has to work? Denominators have to be the same. That's a rule. The good thing is I think they are. Okay, good.
You guys already got it.
Good.
Down.
That's good. Okay, we good? Everyone's got time for it? Okay, I saw the correct answers. Now, here's the weird part. Some of you had different answers written down. They were correct. I want to explain that. Okay, so, trick was when you add. I think the easiest way to do this, since they already have all common denominators, right? They're all 4s in the bottom. Group things up. That's probably the easiest. And that's what a lot of people did, right? They added 3 plus the 2 plus the 1. Those are the big numbers, right? The whole numbers. Then we're going to add the fractions in the back. 1/4 plus the 3/4 plus the 1/4. Right? And when you do that, remember, the big numbers add together. So that's 3 plus 2 plus 1, that's 6. And when you add the fractions, it's 1 plus 3 plus 1, that's 5. And you don't actually add the bottom. You leave the bottom alone, right? You leave it at 4. Don't add the bottoms, right? When you multiply or divide, you go across, right? But on adding, subtracting, the top numbers add or subtract. Now, this is what some people have. And technically, that is correct. But you do need to simplify that. Because what's wrong with this number?
Improper.
Improper. Something's wrong with that, so we have to change that. So what that means is that it's like off to the side, this is my number, right? 6 5/4. I need to change that 5/4. So the 5 goes in the house, the 4 goes on the outside. 4 goes into 5 once. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract, you get 1. That's my remainder. So this is the fraction behind it. It's 1. That goes on the top, and then the 4 goes on the bottom. So this is what 5/4 stands for. So that is technically in this spot. So 6 plus the 1 and 1/4. So really, this is 7/4. Like 7 and 1/4. These are the same number. So that's why I said I saw different numbers on papers, but that's technically correct. Okay. So 4 went into that once, with 1 left over. That's the trick. Okay, so good. So that's good. You guys are starting to figure out like when you add, when you subtract. Multiplying is still the one I think we're still not sure. Dividing is when we're trying to find smaller pieces. How many total pieces? Okay, so Bobby has 10 pounds of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. Well, he's got 10 pounds of sugar. He's going to use 5/8 of a pound for cookies. How much sugar is left? So let's talk about that. What do we need? What operation should we be using here since we're trying to find what's left? Say it. Subtract. We're going to be subtracting here because you're trying to find what's left. It's not trying to figure out how many different times he can bake the same cookies. You're not trying to find out like how many pans he can make. That would be like division. We just want to find what's left of the sugar. There's going to be a ton left. We did not use very much. He had 10 pounds. We used about, not even a full pound of it. It was a fraction of a pound. So we're subtracting. Give you about another minute here. I'm going to show you there's two ways to do this. You can either do it by improper or by borrowing. So we'll get kind of a raise hand of which way you want. Okay, so it's up to you guys. If you want to do it by borrowing, raise your hand if you want borrowing. Improper fractions. Okay, we got more for improper fractions. All right, so those are the people that have money. All right, so improper fractions. That means I have to change this 10 to be 10 over 1. Right? That's how you do improper fractions, right? So I need to get common denominators here before I subtract. So I'm going to put an 8 on the bottom here, so I'm multiplying by 8. So I take the top times 8, that turns out to be 8. Now I can subtract straight across. So subtracting 80 minus 5 is 75 over 8. And then all I have to do is change that back. So 75 would go in the house. 8 would go on the outside. 8 goes into 75 9 times without going over 8 times 9 is 72. And that would give me a 3. And that would be my fraction out back. So you'd have 9 and 3/8 pounds left. It was actually way simpler if you did it by borrowing. Because borrowing, you would have done this. Change the 10 to be 9 and 8/8. That's a perfect 10. That's a full pan plus 9. And you subtract 5/8. So all you have to do is just group these two together. And it's 3/8 is 9. It's way faster if you do that. Alright. So questions with the idea of the story problems. Now remember, if you're trying to find what's left, right? That's subtraction. If you're trying to find a total, that's adding. If you're trying to find multiples of something, like I'm trying to find 5 boards all together, you're probably multiplying. And if you're dividing, it's trying to figure out pieces, like smaller pieces, if you're going by a certain size, so you're dividing into smaller chunks. That type of thing. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So we'll have lunch here in about a minute. Actually, I can bring that.
What do you mean by this?
Because when you're gonna shake him while looking for you, it brings us to see.
Like I just go through ground and you're just walking
We're sure. That's what it's supposed to be. I don't want it. You take it. It's your paper. Moment.
I have to do it like this one.
Like that. So they can do one like that?
Yeah. And then you must do left. And it's really you should do a Rocket League one. Yeah.
Someone just put our faces on the Rocket League cards. Maybe like the 9. And they were like trying to get the ball. And the top right is the scoreboard.
Yeah, and you have the 30 seconds.
All right. Okay. Oh, put the computer.
I see how this light shows. Ooh.
Light show. Ah, all right, here we go. So we talked about this right before we left. How much sugar is left? Remember, if they use the word left, it's probably subtract. Okay? All right, next couple slides. I only got a couple left. All right. All right. So, all right. Shatil weighs 112 pounds. Her sister Alma weighs 3/4 as much. How much does Alma weigh? 3/4 as much. So that should be a clear giveaway. Now, when they use this, like this idea of weighing, and how much does she weigh? What do you think we're doing?
You're doing how much you weigh.
Okay, that's
So,
number one.
We're adding it up.
You multiply?
Divide. Wait. Oh,
Multiplying. You're multiplying. She's weighing 3/4 as much. You multiply by 3/4. The idea is that they're relating Shatil and her sister, and they're saying that she is 3/4 as much. If they said she weighs 12 more pounds, you'd add 12, right? If they said she weighs 12 less, well then you'd subtract 12. But she's saying 3/4 as much, so that means you have to multiply these two numbers. All right. So take that, try it out. Let's see if we can solve it. I think we got 3 more slides to go through. Thank you. Was that? Oh, wait. Couple slides left. Now, this is a hint. If she's weighing 3/4 as much, is that more or less?
Way less.
3/4. She's not weighing more than her, she's weighing 3/4 less. So her sister should be tiny.
So almost smaller.
Small. 3/4 means she's not weighing more, she's weighing less. A fraction less. Even though you're multiplying, she does weigh less. Almost a little bit less.
Wait, I got a question.
Yes. Yep. should be a whole number. If you didn't, you did something wrong. Maybe when you did your denominator on yours, maybe you had the denominator wrong. Maybe you forgot to change the top, something like that. So, okay, double check. It should be a whole number. Now, I'm going to do this by the easiest way I can, so you're actually going to find a certain preferred way. Good? Is there any more time than that? Okay, alright. Now, if you notice, I wrote up here the multiplication part, right? Now, what do I need to make sure for the 112? Okay, now, here's the question. Do I need to get common denominators? No.
Yep.
No. Some people did. Don't get me wrong. You'll get the same answer. So if you put a 4 down here, you probably should have multiplied the top by 4. So that's, because remember, if you change the bottom, you have to change the top. So, if you didn't change, maybe you just went straight across, that's fine. You can simplify it from there. I'm going to simplify it before we move on. That way it will give me what Alma weighs. Okay, so I want to break down the 112. The 112 is, if I think about this, it's 56 times 2. Okay, that's 112. And I can break down 56 even further to be 2 times 28. And I can break down 28 even further to be 4 times 7. And I can break down 4 to be even further to be 2 times 2. Right? So there's the top. That's breaking down 112 as far as I can. That's crazy that I went that far. Then the other fraction is 3 over 4. And then what I can do is I can break down the 4 over here to be 2 times 2. And now I can start crossing things out. Because remember, when you multiply, you can simplify. Okay, so I can cross out a 2. I can cross out another 2. And now all I need to do is go across and I can figure out what all the ways. So what I'm left with is a 2, a 2, 7, and a 3. So, and there's nothing left on the bottom. So that's why I knew it was going to be a whole number. Okay, there's nothing left. And so 2, 2, 7, and 3. 2, 2, 7, and 3. I'm going to multiply these together. So that's 4. That's 2 times 2. 7 times 3 is 21. And if I actually multiply those together, I get 84. And that's what Alma weighs. Her sister is kind of small. 84 pounds. In high, Alma is a kid. Small. Alright. Any questions with how I broke down 112? Like how I did that? Remember, you're allowed to do that when you multiply. I didn't need to get common denominators. I kind of saw some people were attempting to get common denominators here. You don't need to. You can, don't get me wrong. You get the same answer, it's just you have to simplify it a lot more. Okay. Alright, so that was a weighing problem. So that was kind of like yesterday, I think we talked about one where you're making half as much of a cake. You're multiplying by half. Or dividing by 2. That's the idea. Okay. Alright, next one. Okay, so Desi buys 3 3/4 pounds of potato salad for her birthday. She needs to feed 20 people with that. 20 people are going to eat that potato salad. How much does each person get? Okay, so now, think about this. You have 20 people coming, and you have 3 1/3 pounds of potato salad. How do you think you're going to figure out how much each person will get? Divide. You have to divide. Because you're going to take your 3 3/4 pound of potato salad, you're dividing amongst 20 people in your room. So when you divide by 20, that will give what each little piece, what every person should get. Okay, I can tell you right now, 3 1/3 pounds of potato salad, that's a lot of potato salad. Okay, 3 1/3, that's a lot of potato salad, but you are feeding 20 people. So the idea is that they're not getting a full pound each. Think about it that way. They're not getting a full pound. I mean, if you had 20 pounds of potato salad and 20 people, each person would get a pound. That'd be a lot of potato salad. So they're not. So take this number and divide by how many people there are. And that will give you how much potato salad per people. Okay? So try that. Divide those numbers. See what you get. think I got one more slide to go through. Okay, do we need any more time for dividing? Okay, let's go through it. Remember, dividing amongst 20 people. So each person should not be getting a full pound. It should be a small number, not a full pound, not 3 for 3 pounds, It should be some smaller number. So, all right. So 3 1/3 divided by 20. Now, when we do this, when you divide numbers and they're mixed numbers, you have to make them improper. That was the only way. There was no second method for this. You have to make these improper. So to make this improper, you take the 3 times 3 on the bottom, which is 9, and you add the top, so that's 10 over 3. Okay? When you divide by the 20, that is 20 over 1. Right? That's how we change that to improper. That should be your first step. Hopefully you did that correctly. Now, how do we divide though?
Flip.
Flip. Which one do we flip?
20 over 1.
Exactly, the second fraction. So we're going to flip this to multiplication, and the second fraction will flip. That's technically, we kind of cheat. When you divide, we actually just cheat it. We just flip it over. And so at this point, now I can simplify. I know that 10 and 20 have numbers in common. If I divide 10 by 10, I get 1. Divide 20 by 10, I get 2. I could break those up, 2 and 5, and 2 and 10, cross things out, and whatnot. But the idea is that we actually simplify, then I go straight across, and what we get is we get 1 over, and then, because that's 1 times 1, and then on the bottom, 3 times 2 is 6. And that's how many pounds each person will get.
I think I did the harder way, but so I got the same answer.
How do you do a harder way?
I just did 20 times 3 and then 10 times 1.
Oh,
But then I simplified.
okay, yeah, so you just went straight across. Yeah, that's fine. You went straight across, you got 10 over 60, and you simplified. Okay. Because then the zeros can drop. Yep. Okay, so not a lot. You're not getting a full pound. You're not even getting close to a full pound. You're getting 1/6 of a pound, which is really small. Again, you have 20 people and you have a little bit of chaos. Okay, questions? Okay, last problem of the day. Last problem. Here it is. All right. Kaylin buys 2 1/4 pounds of tomatoes and 3 2/3 pounds of lettuce. How many pounds of vegetables did she buy? So what are we thinking?
I'm adding.
We're definitely adding. We're finding a total, right? We're not trying to divide it among certain people, dividing it into smaller parts. We're finding combined weight. So we are adding. I was gonna say a lot of it. But your freshman, I don't think the freshman, they have to get from the front of the get but you gotta get it from the I'm going to go in about 30 seconds here, so I'm going to give some time for people to kind of get their final answers now. Okay, all right, here we go. Common denominators here, because when you add, you can group. So I'm going to group the 2 and the 3. A lot of people did that correct, so that's good. But then the fractions in the back, we got to make sure we get common denominators here. Common denominators, when you multiply these together, it's 12s. That's the bottom number. You multiply the 3 and the 4 together. Okay, when we do that, we multiply this first fraction by 3, so I take the top minus 3, I get 3. The second fraction, I multiply by 4 to get the 12 on the bottom, so I take the top minus 4, I get 8. And now when I add these together, what's 3 plus 8? That's 11 twelfths, right? Because you don't actually add the bottom numbers, so it's 11 over 12. The big numbers out here actually add. This is what you should have had. About 5 pounds. I could have told you that. 2 and 3, about 5 pounds, roughly. I just didn't know what the fraction was going to give me. Maybe it would give me 6, maybe it would. So, all right, we're almost to 6. That was about as close as you could get. We're off by 1/12. All right, questions, comments on anything we've done here today? Goals tomorrow, I want to do maybe 2 or 3 more of these. Just get kind of back in the flow of things, and then we'll get some more counts, which are based on story times tomorrow. Now, if you didn't realize we did have homework today, if you didn't get that done, make sure it gets wrapped up today. I don't mind if you turn it in maybe tomorrow morning, but make sure that gets wrapped up, because I need to get that in grade book. So, okay, that's the homework that I signed on Monday, so make sure you're working on that. Page 8283. So I'll accept it tomorrow morning if you don't.